by the way, if you know anybody who's at Hyco Lake or any of these lakes that flooded, you need to be really careful. My friend's mother saying everybody has she had they don't know where it came in, but they has an infection all the way up.
Giving you the marked up version of what has changed, and that's essentially what we're going to talk about.
From an infection? From an infection from the waters from Hyco. They were out there trying to save what was in their boathouse while it was flooding. And he just put down like hundreds of bags of mulch all gone.
All right, it is just after 1 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Do that.
Abbreviated to get through as much of this as possible. Couple of things that are going to seem elementary, but I'm just going to remind you. Seller, make sure that when you're inputting the seller's name, it's the complete legal name of the seller. If their name is James, it's not Jim or Jimmy, it's James, what their legal name is. Also, if the seller is an entity or a trust, then that's who the seller is. So you would put the estate of or the trust of, and then there's a human that signs, or the entity, and then there's always a human that signs on behalf of the entity. I will give you a little note on DocuSign. You have to change it because it wants to give you the initials of what the entity is. So for example, if the seller was SM Ward Construction Inc., DocuSign is going to want to say SMWI, where you have to change it so that Scott Ward or Karen Ward is the person signing on behalf of the entity, the initials and the entity. Just a reminder, so estates, trusts, that's who's selling, that's who the seller is. Dead people can't sell property. So even like if you're pulling the tax card and it still has the deceased name on it because it's been recent and it hasn't been updated yet with the, that's where you just got to dig and ask a few more questions. Is this in an estate? Who's the trustee? You know, is there a power of attorney? All of those sorts of things to ask those questions. And then again, same thing with the buyer. Property, please complete as much of this information as possible. All of this is available. Every bit of this is available on the tax card. So when you're pulling the tax card, all of this information is available there. Lot unit or block section might be the only things that aren't there because that's from the old tax system, unless it's in a subdivision, and then it may have a lot, but typically, or if it's a condo, it may be a unit. Block and section are old tax systems, so that may not be there.
Sometimes the plat book
Right, sometimes if it's old, yeah, plat book may not be in there either. Other than that, everything else should be completed. There is always a deed. Have people come back and say, well, there's not a deed for this property. Yeah, there is. There's a deed for it. And so what we're looking for here is and in your compliance, when you upload the deed, is the deed of where it was deeded to the current owner, so that we're showing that they can convey the property. Property will or will not include a manufactured home, or will or will not include an off-site and or separate septic lot, boat slip, garage, parking space, or storage unit. In our area, we're going to most often run into an off-site septic. There's occasion where there may be a off-site garage or parking space. Judy, I think you had one with an off-site garage, didn't you? A townhouse or a condo?
Townhomes and condos have them.
Well, that's the question. Is
Yeah,
that considered off-site
Yeah.
if it's located like down the way?
It's not on the piece of property. It conveys with the deed,
Right.
but there's, it's the same thing with the septic system, if it's an off-site septic system. So typically you'll see, lot 28A and the septic might be on lot 28B kind of thing. So it's the same thing, with a garage or a parking space, or storage units. So yeah, typically you see them with either condos or with townhomes.
And yes, I do have one right now. but
Yeah, I
Probably
thought you
is.
Probably
Not
not.
bad.
Okay,
Where is that?
Are you screen sharing?
Barrington.
Oh,
Okay. yeah.
no, I'm not. Crap.
Can I close this real quick?
Yeah.
I just got a text. It's already,
Yeah. I forgot to hit screen share.
This one, right? Is that where you were?
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, guys. My bad. So if it does, then you just need to make sure that you reference, and typically you can put, because it'll have a separate PIN or PID, and then you would just reference it there as far as like an off-site septic, because it's separately registered with the county. Purchase price, that's a given. Due diligence fee, we're seeing a lot more electronic transfer. Just a note on electronic transfer, if it's Zelle or Venmo or whatever it is, we still need verification that those funds were sent and received. So screenshot of the Zelle or Venmo suffices in compliance for copy of the due diligence check. And then on the seller side, a screenshot or having them sign the piece of paper suffices for that.
So Karen, are we still, if they were wiring funds into somebody's account,
Yes.
right? Let's say somebody says, I want to wire into their account. Used to be that we as agents were not allowed to be part of the relaying of any account info. That's still,
That is still the case. Yes. Party A needs to contact Party B's bank and they need to figure it out. We do not get any information, no bank accounts, none of that.
you'd be amazed at how many agents, if I say that to, they're like, oh, well, like they never heard about that.
We can deliver the checks. I mean, that's what I do. Is taking like a physical check and delivering it.
Sure,
But
yeah,
You're talking about
a
bank
wire, yeah.
A wire, if they
Okay,
wanted to
and so
wire
not
it into
sharing all
somebody
that.
else's account, they need the bank information to do that. And so if you're trying to keep separation between the buyer and the seller, then we're the agent. They're asking me, well, can I do this? And I'm like, well, no, you can't do it directly because I can't be in the middle unless some of the closing attorneys will actually receive it and then issue a check.
Yes.
But but there are a lot of agents
That's probably the
who seem
easiest
to
way
not know that.
Do wires, have the attorney do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and if it's supposed to be happening on the same day as
Acceptance.
yeah, that's a little problematic.
It could be, but
I mean, how many attorneys are ready at the drop of a hat to deal with all of, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, typically they can do a wire very quickly.
But some of them say, no, I can't do that because the due diligence has to go to
Directly to
the
the seller.
seller, not to me as the attorney. I've had some attorneys decline doing that. There are some others that will.
Yes, yes. So, and there is actually a part in here, that addresses that as to who the money, so it's in the listing agreement as well as to who the money is going to be made out to as well. Okay, so, just a reminder, purchase price minus due diligence, minus initial earnest money, minus any additional earnest money equals the balance down here. Assumption, we haven't had any of those yet, not to say that we won't, as low as, if somebody can, assume a 3% loan, I'm sure that they'd be all over it. Seller financing, so it says loan assumption addendum and seller financing addendum. My recommendation is that these are rarely black and white. And the addendum that is provided by NCAR and the bar does not take in any what if scenario. It's just very cut and dry. If it's cut and dry, then that's fine. Particularly on seller financing, because is there a balloon? What happens if, there's so many other factors from a seller financing, and it also does not give you an amortization schedule, where when an attorney drafts it, that it will give an amortization schedule. So one of the things that I love about this new contract, other than the fact that it's 3 pages less, is that most everything, the information that you need is on page 1. So I know what my purchase price is. I know if there's any seller concessions. I know my due diligence period, and I know my settlement date, all on the first page. And then they stack in the legal mumbo jumbo from there. So again, seller concessions, if there are any, do not put NA here or do not put NA here. I know it tells you don't put NA there, but you'd be surprised about the number that I get that have an NA. It's an either or. So it's either a date or it's how many days after the effective date. And that is, time is of the essence. It's one or the other, not both. And so you may say, oh, well, what if there's no due diligence period? What if the buyer's waiving the due diligence period? Okay, well then put today's date or put 1 day after effective date. Make sense?
Yeah.
What about home warranties? That's the only other place that you said.
That's so many pages away. And then settlement date on what your settlement date is.
I like the new page 1.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. Home warranty is still further into the contract. Yeah. But again, most of everything, you're not flipping to page 9 to find out what the seller paid closing costs are. Okay. Escrow agent. If there is earnest money, either initial or additional, you must put a name in here. It can't be TBD. It can't be buyer's choice, which is what a lot of times when there's not earnest money, they'll put, agents will put buyer's choice, which is fine. But when there is money, when there is earnest money, we need to know who's going to be holding and handling that money. So it can either, if there's no earnest money, it can be blank. It can say buyer's choice. It can say TBD. If there is earnest money, it can't say any of those things. It has to say to be, who is actually going to be holding the earnest money.
But if you haven't decided on a closing attorney at the time of offer,
You need to decide.
you need to decide?
Yeah.
Well, you can do
If
an addendum.
Yeah.
there's gonna be.
If there's earnest money, because you got within 5 days, we have to get that earnest money to somebody.
Right.
And so, and you can always change it. So agreement to amend allows you to change who the escrow agent is if it changes from the contract.
So what about if you're still deciding the time of contract? How about if you just leave it blank and then fill it in 2 days later when you've decided? Can't do that?
Not if it's already been fully executed.
Make one up and change it.
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, who do you typically use, or, you know, whatever, if you're having a conversation, it's like, okay,
I have found myself having to change them often.
Yeah.
Because I always just put one in there and it's like my go-to,
right,
and then the client will say, actually, I use Kindle Page or something.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's, either have the conversation to say, is there an attorney that you would prefer to use? And then if they say, oh yeah, we like to use Kindle Page, then okay, we go ahead and put Kendall's name in there. So I think, again, that's just being proactive and having that conversation with the buyer up front, on who they would like to use as an attorney. Here's who I typically use, here's who does a great job. Do you have a particular one that you prefer to use? And if you do, let's make sure that they are a real estate attorney. We need to know who is holding that money. And again, agreement to amend allows you to change it should it change.
Yes, my concern there would be, what if the sellers are like, no, we don't like that attorney, you have to use the one.
No, the sellers, no.
Okay, the sellers
Yeah,
can't.
North Carolina is a buyer right state for closing. So the buyer is able to choose who they want.
Unilateral agreement there. Or, right.
Yeah.
Alright.
No. I mean, from the seller's perspective, it doesn't, if the seller doesn't like that attorney that the buyer chose, then the seller can get their own attorney to draft their closing document, you know, the deed, lien waiver, all of that kind of stuff. They don't have to use the buyer's attorney to draft their documentation, but the buyer gets to choose who they want to hire to handle their closing. So just a reminder of a couple of definitions between settlement and closing. Settlement is when we all show up to the attorney's office and have a settlement party. Everybody signs the documentation, all of that. That's settlement. Closing is when the attorney calls you or emails you and says, we're recorded, come pick up your check. So closing is when keys get released, not at settlement. Unless the seller agrees. If the seller agrees, I would encourage that there be some sort of an agreement there in place. It's a whole lot of liability for the seller, so I wouldn't recommend it because, you know, let's say that it is late in the afternoon. You know, our closing's at 3 o'clock and our settlement is at 3 o'clock, and for whatever reason, it didn't get recorded. And so then the buyers move in, the house burns down, then it's still the seller's house because it wasn't recorded. So I would just caution you on any handing over keys prior to being recorded.
So that's really on the buyer agent, right? If I'm the listing agent and I leave keys at closing, and I'm entrusting the buyer's agent to do what they're supposed to do, and they give the keys to the buyers early, and the buyers go in early, and the house burns down, it's on the buyer agent, right?
It is, so long as you have communicated to the agent that keys are not to be delivered to the buyer until we are recorded.
So we, as a listing agent, we should always be saying that
Absolutely,
in writing,
yes,
not to be delivered until recording.
correct.
Wow.
Should not be turned over to the buyer until we've received notice that it's been recorded.
Don't you usually leave the keys for the attorney, and the attorney would have to release them?
Well, a lot of the attorneys are trying to exit their,
I left them out there in the lockbox, and
Yeah,
My language, I guess, wasn't that specific, but it will be now.
yes. And so the other thing too is to, you can leave them in the lockbox. So, you know, one of the things that I've done in the past is they do their final walkthrough at 10 o'clock or whatever. And then I'll go by the house, make sure everything is still okay, and I'll change the combination on the lockbox. I'll leave the keys in the lockbox, but change the combination. And so that way, once we're recorded, then I can, you know, call the agent or text the agent and say, hey, this is the new code to get in, because because that's where you'll catch people, is that you'll get a call like right after the settlement party and be like, the buyers can't get into the house. Well, we haven't recorded yet. It's not the buyer's house yet. But see, that's where you'll catch those agents that are letting buyers get in before it's being recorded. So sometimes some attorneys will still hold the keys, have them in their possession until it records. And then typically, you know, I mean, either the buyer comes and picks them up from the attorney, or the agent comes when they pick up their check and they pick up the keys and then deliver them to their buyer from there as well. But yes, we just need to be very clear with the expectations that keys are not delivered until we've recorded. So fixtures and exclusions, big thing here. Parties should not assume that an item will or will not be included in the sale based on a statement or advertisement outside of this contract. So, for example, if the MLS sheet says washer and dryer convey, make it a part of the contract. You can't just go by the assumption because it said it was in MLS that it does convey.
And if it's not in the contract, if the buyer's agent left it out, then it does not convey.
That is correct. Yes, yeah. You know, because, and sometimes it may be because the buyer doesn't want it. You know, I mean, you're buying a house that, you know, has a avocado green refrigerator that's probably still working because that's when they made good refrigerators. And they're, you know, and they're retro coming back, but the buyer's like, heck, no, I want that refrigerator. So you don't put, even though the MLS sheet might say that it's staying, your contract says it's not staying, which means it's got to go. The seller's got to move it.
In which case, shouldn't they put that in the does not convey line, and is that still part of the offer to purchase?
Yeah.
Yes,
Does not convey?
yes.
So maybe something that looks like it's conveying, but the buyer says, I really don't want that.
So it is, so refrigerator is personal property. What the contract is referring to is our fixtures. So it would be a fixture that does not convey.
But a buyer is saying, I don't want it.
No,
Because it's kind of assumed that if it's not named in the personal property section, that it's not conveying.
correct.
So-
Yes.
It's like if the dining room chandelier, you want to be clear that this doesn't.
It would be
No, this is
anything.
not for the listing agreement. This is the buy. Yeah, now I'm
Listing says
confused.
The chandelier does not convey.
Right.
Then in the offer to purchase.
You would put items that do
Also
not convey
that,
would be
right.
dining room
Because
chandelier.
that's a fixture.
Yes.
And that should be.
Yes. And then you've got your whole list of things that are considered fixtures and stay with the property. So just remember antennas, satellite dishes. Talk about this in the listing agreement, the unpairing and deleting data from devices. Just to make sure when you're reviewing the offer to purchase with your seller, when you're presenting this, that's a reminder. Maybe even it's part of your closing checklist for your seller is to unpair or delete data from any devices that are conveying That includes the button on your car that builds in your garage door opener. Make sure you're unpairing that.
There is a form that I attended some online class for this kind of stuff that people love, and I looked it up and it exists, a form 700 something, which is a to give to your sellers upon move out, things that they should be doing to unpair all these things. And it's like a checklist. Do you know the form? I'll look for it because I looked at it once and it's really good and it's there. So we could all utilize it. 700 something, I think.
Yeah, I'll look into it as well. Items leased or not owned, again, this would be antennas, satellite dishes, appliances. You know, sometimes people go to rent a center and the range might be in the house, but does the seller actually own it?
Propane tanks.
Propane tanks, security systems. Please don't ever make an offer on a house that has solar panels, but if you should, solar panels would go in here as well. Because we need to know, okay, how is this going to be, who's paying for it? You know, sometimes it might be an HVAC system. You know, because there are some HVAC companies that will replace your HVAC unit and then they do a financing program with you. And so those are things that you see to make sure to be paid off at closing. Other items that do not convey, this is where grandma's chandelier would go, and anything that was in that list above that also doesn't convey. And then here's your personal property. And I get it, and I love the thoroughness. Just know that you don't have to. Typically, it'll say as seen on property at time of showing, whatever. That's fine. It already says present on the property at the date of the offer. So it already says it there. And I would just ask you, please do not put fridge. Please spell refrigerator. Those are just little things that make my eye twitch.
Back to propane tanks. Often people don't buy them out before the next person.
That's correct.
They just continue the lease.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Yeah. When we
So-
get to the propane, when we get to the tank part, that's where the disclosure is, if it's owned or leased. And
So it wouldn't go under the items leased or not owned.
that's correct,
section?
because it has
would not.
its own
That's
section.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so this is also where you want to put small ticket items. So this is refrigerator, washer, dryer, things that are commonly conveyed with the real property. This might not be the zero turn lawnmower. The lender might frown upon that. So you just might want to make sure if the zero turn lawnmower does convey, there's a separate form, there's a bill of sale form that you can put anything else like, you know, patio furniture, anything that you want to put on that to keep it separate from the lender. Again, we do not need an as-is addendum because it states in big bold letters here, the property is being sold in its current condition. Reminder, if the buyer's home inspector falls through the ceiling, it is at the buyer's expense to repair that. That does not mean if the buyer's inspector takes his screwdriver and jabs it into the floor joist and half the floor joist falls off, they do not have to repair that. That is identifying a underlying problem. Closing shall constitute acceptance of the property in its then existing condition unless provision is otherwise made in writing. So, you know, sometimes we get to this that, we go, you know, we go to do that final walkthrough and the seller took the hot tub. The hot tub was supposed to stay and the seller took the hot tub. And you're, you know, 30 minutes from sitting down at the settlement party. What do you do?
Don't close it or resolve the issue.
Absolutely. So, you know, there's a couple of choices. Number one, you're very, very rarely is your buyer going to be able to close and then it happen after closing. So if the seller's like, oh yeah, we'll bring it back, then let's have the attorney draft something that says you will bring it back and have it reinstalled within X number of days, and it must be in working order, you know, all of those kinds of things. Or like Nate said, don't close.
So you can get like that agree, it doesn't have to be installed, you can get that addendum or attorney drafted agreement and then close, and it's still binding.
It would be binding, absolutely, yes, yeah. So again, anything that's in writing, you know, if there's supposed to be repairs that are made and the repairs weren't made to the satisfaction of the buyer, don't close, because it will not happen, and your buyer will not have any recourse after closing. This is buyer representations. Again, we do not have a contingent contract, so none of these are contingencies. It is for information purposes only. Cash, we love it when we get an offer and that box is checked, or a loan. Again, this is for informational purposes only. What kind of loan are they getting? And this can change later throughout the contract. If at first they were going to get an FHA loan and then they decided, oh no, let's get a, let's do a conventional, and you know, for whatever reason, it can change. Nothing needs to be changed on the contract because it's for informational purposes only. And that's the reason that there's not an agreement on the agreement to amend. There's nothing on there that says buyer is switching loan type from this to this, because informational purposes only.
So
Same
not a
as it-
material fact.
Right.
Same
Not
if they do finance and then switch to cash or the other way around. Is that all?
Yep. Nothing needs to be changed.
What about if they're getting down payment assistance?
So typically that would be other funds right here.
Yeah, but you don't have to disclose it.
Right.
I mean, so you could technically win an offer.
Absolutely.
And the agent
Yeah.
not happy.
By
knowing-
showing them the conventional
And
approval.
Right.
then they do an
Yeah.
FHA or VA
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
puts
I
your
actually
seller
have
in a
one
bad position.
currently where, you know, it was not intentional. I had a conventional pre-approval. I was under the impression they were going to do conventional. And then the lender, when processing things, switched to FHA because it was much more beneficial for the buyer. Luckily, there were no FHA required repairs, but the listing agent was not happy. And I did notify her as soon as I was informed that that switch had been made, which was after the appraisal had been done, but I just didn't realize. So, but I talked to the attorney and they told me about that it's all good, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yes. Now there is
doesn't
an,
make people happy.
no, it does
Right.
not. It does not. There is an FHA addendum that will have to be signed. So many times the seller will say, I'm not signing that. Well, that's okay. When you go to the closing table, you will be signing it. So don't make a big stink about it. We want them to go ahead and sign it so that we have our paperwork in advance. If it's not signed, by the time that they sit down at the closing table, the attorney's going to push it across for them to sign, because the lender's not going to fund the loan without that document being signed.
It just stinks if you've got an older house and they switch to FHA and then,
It's a stressy move for sure.
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they want you to paint the house because there's peeling.
Yeah,
paint.
well, and you know, and again, seller
can
can
do
always
it.
say no. Yep. We did not advertise that we were accepting FHA offers in MLS.
Well, so
When you
what,
said
no,
that-
back up, you were saying that's for informational purposes.
It
So
is.
All right, so what happens if you were in that situation? And they said it was gonna be conventional, and then they pull a switcheroo on you to FHA, and FHA says paint your house.
Then the seller just says, no, I'm not painting my house.
Or the buyer has to cover the expense
Yeah,
to satisfy the financing, or the financing falls apart, or they have to switch back to conventional.
right, switch back to convention.
So it really matters what you put in your listing as to what kind of loan.
Absolutely.
And so if you have an old house, you don't want to check VA and FHA.
If it will not qualify, so I mean, if there's the things in that they're looking for, like, broken windows, peeling paint,
Railing,
railings, you know, some of those common things, then yeah, don't offer it as a type of financing that your seller is willing to accept.
I always feel like that's discriminatory. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, you know,
It's
I'm
not
not gonna sell to a VA.
Right,
buyer.
and I hear what you're saying, and I've had, you know, because with my history with foreclosures, obviously, there's a lot of times when I don't check FHA or VA because it won't qualify. And I have had agents like literally call me and almost attack me of, you know, why are you discriminating against, you know, against veterans? And I said, I'm not, I'm just telling you, it won't appraise. The lender's not going to approve the
Unless
property.
you could have the buyer show you we have sufficient funds to cover anticipated repairs potentially. If
Yeah,
it is something that I
absolutely.
don't know.
You know, I mean, yes, if you, I would love for your veteran, I would love nothing more than for your veteran to buy this property. But I have fiduciary responsibility to my seller that I can't say to them without you giving me some sort of proof from a lender or verification of funds in between that they will make, that they'll pay for anything that needs to be done in order for it to qualify for FHA VA.
But can a buyer buyers can't make repairs on properties they don't own yet, and will the lender loan on a property that has those issues that make it?
If the
So it
seller
doesn't
authorizes
qualify.
them to make those repairs, they can absolutely make those repairs.
It's a big risk.
Yeah. It's a risk. I don't recommend it, but I mean, and that's
You
why,
get somebody who's gonna spray paint latex over oil because it's now painted with no primer and the wrong kind of paint.
yeah.
Anything is possible. It's
Yes.
Probably not worth
Yeah.
exploring.
Again, not that I recommend it.
But you said earlier that in the MLS for fixtures, it doesn't count, but it does count for loan types?
What do you mean?
You explained the fixture part in the MLS, so if it says something in there, whether it conveys or not convey, it has to be in the offer, right? If
Correct.
they miss it in the offer, then the assumption is that
It
the
doesn't.
MLS doesn't trump it.
Right.
So on this case, you're saying that for the FHA, VA, stuff like that, for the loan type on the MLS, it does matter what's there because at that point trumps the offer?
No, it never trumps the offer. And again, this is informational purposes only. The only thing with MLS is that I'm trying to save the agent the trouble of coming out and showing my house with a FHA or VA buyer when I know that it won't qualify for an FHA or VA loan. And therefore my seller's not going to accept an offer that has an FHA or VA loan.
I think that just opens listing agents to not put it there, and if they get one, they're not held liable to it because it's not in the MLS. Like if it just says cash and conventional, and I a buyer's agent, and I come to you and I say, well, they have an FHA loan. I looked at the property, I think it's gonna pass. You say, yeah, I think it might too. So we put in the FHA, it doesn't pass. Now you're gonna say, well, we didn't have FHA in the MLS, so I guess you're out your due diligence money now. Although we even had that conversation.
Yeah, well, and again, informational purposes only, and also make sure everything in MLS is deemed reliable but not guaranteed.
Yeah, I think that's wrong. Sorry.
Speaking of, I have to leave because I have to go fight that battle right there, specifically. All right,
Yeah, it almost feels like it should be a contingency.
yeah, we used to have a contingent offer, but we do not anymore.
But from the buyer's
Well, I think they should
perspective,
be held liable. If it'll pass FHA, then it needs to stay in MLS. Or if it's
Yeah, but again, keep in mind that, this is not you, the agent, making these decisions. This is your sellers. This is your seller's decision. So, I mean, Judy, to your point, you feel like that it's discriminatory. It's not, because it's not a protected class, number one. And secondly, it's not you discriminating. It's a choice that your seller is making.
At the time that they list.
Yeah.
Or with whatever
Or with
knowledge.
the offer.
Right,
Yeah.
with whatever knowledge they have about what accepting a VA or an FHA loan would mean to them in terms of what they need to do to their house to make it work.
and
Yes.
it's the buyer's ability to close that.
So we should really have information available for our sellers to say, this is what is gonna be looked at and.
FHA appraisal
Yeah.
requirements.
Right, so they need that kind of education before they can make that call usually, right? Okay. Hey. Well, thank you. I
Yes.
learned a few things
Sorry, I
today.
have to, sorry, I
No,
have
you're
to.
fine.
to
Thank
run
you.
out. Yeah, I gotta run. We cut all that off.
Like I said, I'm not prepared to leave this at all.
Bye.
Okay.
I'll be back. Again, thank you guys for being here. Normally, I would have more time to answer questions and dive further into this. But I'm excited to see.
I'll review it, and if there's
what-
anything specific, I'll reach out.
Oh, yeah,
But,
absolutely. Yeah.
thank you.
I'm excited to see
Alright.
what MLS
Yeah, I was
changes
saying,
might
like,
be.
fix some
Oh, yeah,
MLS.
Hey.
Sorry, I was late. When I had the hardest time finding this, my phone directed me to a place on Millstone. That is now a doctor's
Oh, yeah.
office, and when I went in, I said,
that was
is
their
this
old
KW? And they said, no, it used to be. So I went to the former location,
So you went
and
in
then, but they told me to come here and said suite 201. And I saw next door, there's like a 617, so I didn't even see that this was 201, so I'm so sorry.
And they have no sign yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Sign
haven't
might be
missed any
nice.
of this. Do they usually have another one of these forms labs, like?
I think she's doing this every week now, right?
Yeah, I think she said she's going through like, this time it was the offer, next time it'll be like the listing
Mis-
stuff, and
or-
that she does a
Or
rotation.
miscellaneous
Yeah.
forms are
Yeah.
next,
Yeah.
So
actually.
at the same time?
And,
In same
and,
place.
and
They're
Not the same
available
place.
online. She has these in
Oh, tops.
Burlington and
Oh,
they're
okay.
available, you can go back, they're recorded.
Oh, good, good.
Right. Who are you?
Oh, my name is Sherry Harrell, and I was just licensed last week,
Oh,
so,
Wow.
you know, I'm still
Well,
kind of.
congratulations.
You on Judy Weinstein?
Oh, nice to meet you, Judy.
And Alice Boyle.
Oh,
Nice
Alice,
to meet you.
Did I met you? All right, well.
Hey.
You can be part of the Hillsborough office?
I'm supposed to be part of the Keller Williams office for now. I mean, the Burlington office for now.
Burlington.
But I would like to be this office because I live in Durham.
Oh,
But
have you met with Andrew?
I met him yesterday, but I don't even know if he knows what office I was with. He might, I don't know. I didn't get to talk to him, so it was right for the team meeting yesterday.
Okay,
Are you with this?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Would you like to speak with him?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Andrew, this is Sherry.
Harold.
Yeah, you know. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so Sherry seems to need help with knowing which office she's with.
Got it.
Yeah, I think I'm with the one, I'm pretty sure I'm with the one for Burlington.
Yeah.
Now, but I live in Durham, so this would be wonderful. If I
Okay.
could-
So you're still.
Oh, I know, I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
So your
Yeah.
license,
Yeah.
your
I
license
have to
will
have
always be
Why?
held in Burlington.
Okay.
Because right now we don't have a separate brokerage card on this. office. So
Yeah.
you will be affiliated with
Over
Burlington,
here.
just like these agents are.
Right.
And all of our training right now. Is gonna happen in our office. However, You're welcome to try anything else. If you need to come sit in the office and work. It's closer, like, so, and then as you finish your first licensing, you're fully licensed, like, you wanna like say, I'm gonna base myself out of Hillsborough, that's pretty okay. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to get this license.
Yep, good for you.
So, hopefully
Good.
get it done. Hopefully get it done in 3 months.
There you go, do it.
Yeah.
We have it right now, we did, it's the last month, it's month 18, and she hasn't even started. And it's like, she's got 3 weeks to get it done. It's like,
Yeah, it's like unit 5 took me 2 days. I mean, want to get about 6 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking, I should try to wait till last minute for this thing. I'm gonna get it done.
And it's good for you and good, like.
I really like
stuff
that.
for a while. Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, here, I was like,
Okay.
I met him times.
Yeah, 'cause I love
I
talking to you
moved
all
him
the
to
time.
Old Millstone location.
Oh, no.
And then I was there and it freaked me out, so I ended up calling the driver and said, well, I said, Roger, I said, where am I supposed to go? And then they told me here, so the office
Yeah.
next door,
Yeah.
one of the sites has
We'd
this
love
like
to join you.
617 or something. So we went on for Suite 201.
Let's sit down, try
I
to get
didn't see
you
the
down.
201, I just saw the 600, I said, well, this is.
And our signage isn't done yet, so I'm sorry, it's been a little while, but.
I just moved it, like, so I was,
Okay.
I didn't get it.
Okay,
I
bring you back
couldn't get on
next
time.
on that.
But when I went to that Millstone location, I wanted, it's now a doctor's office. And I walked in,
Yeah, man.
and I said, is this
Okay,
COVID?
why don't you text me when
She
you're
said,
back this way, and then let's sit down.
And I
We'll
said,
go
"Josh,
sit
this is
down.
a big office, but this
I'd
is
love to
nice
talk
too."
about that.
So this is your main office?
So I'm good
Yeah,
today.
all right, sounds good. All right, bro, sounds good, yeah, you can talk.
No, I'm working on that. Those twice.
There you go.
But, and I've learned so much today.
Good.
already. I don't really feel capable yet. I feel like I'd like to be a buyer's agent, but I sure don't feel capable of being a listing agent yet.
You'll get there.
So because the buyer's agent, in your opinion, is the easier, you think?
I would just say it's a different set of challenges.
Yeah.
They're both challenging.
Yeah.
Buyer is a little easier to pick up on.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to go show a house than it is to go like call a house and figure out, like, we still do some of that on the buyer side, but it's a little more flexible.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm picking up on, so. All right, well, good to see you
Yeah,
again,
you
Andrew.
too.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right, sounds good.
All right.